Houston Texans, Houston Rockets, Houston Dynamo, Houston everything, Houston born and raised, H-Town Rebel Space Cadet Sports.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, folks of all stripes, and distinguished guests, put your hands together for the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. Houston, we have Paul Salazar Jr.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Space Cadet Sports Podcast, your Houston sports podcast for diehard Houston sports fans. From a diehard Houston sports fan, I'm Paul Salazar Jr., your favorite diehard Astros fan podcaster. Feel free to add as many additional qualifiers to that statement to make it true. I'm an actor, improviser, writer, creative multi-hyphenate, but most importantly, I'm a proud Houston native, and I have the receipts to prove it. People don't know this, but I'm the jester they named TC Jester after. I've spent the last decade or so as a comedy writer in Los Angeles, and now, well, I'm podcasting. That's what happens when you hit 10 years out here. You start absent-mindedly calling it the 10 instead of I-10, and you start podcasting. On today's episode, the NBA trade deadline goes by without any movement from your Houston Rockets. The Houston Astros are prepping for spring training. And in Texans news, there is a football game going on this weekend, but for us, we're watching C.J. Stroud cut his locks. That'll come later. I'd like to welcome newcomers to the podcast. Space Cadet Sports is a diehard Houston sports podcast that is my passion project, where we try not to be doom and gloom casual fans. Most sports podcasts are doom and gloom clickbait or emotional reactions and hot takes. Here we try to not just be another dude yelling his opinions as if they're fact. I try my hardest to remember that we've elected to be Houston sports fans, and we should try to enjoy this life. Why torture ourselves by letting these sports bros rile up our emotions? We try to be reasonable. I mean, well, up to an extent. I'm still human, arguably, and maybe I used to write jokes for money, and maybe there's always a little bit of room for some humor here, but we try to be reasonable, right? Basically, I have the guts to say what all other podcasters just won't admit. I'm a clown, so be warned. I'd like to welcome returning listeners and welcome new listeners to what my brothers call the Paul Broadpod Ball Blog. Hey, brothers. They're both Milford men, I should say. I apologize. Shout out to my brothers, shout out to Arrested Development fans, and shout out to the subscribers on the Substack. Check out spacecadetsports.substack.com for the full blog experience, or the full blog experience depending on your interpretation of my mumbles. As always, we're recording this transmission here in sunny Los Angeles, where I'm joined by my co-host and co-producer, the Ross to my Frasier. Carla the dog is here with me, and longtime listeners of the podcast know that she may get on mic from time to time. She's got the hot takes on this podcast. But let's get to it. G'day, mates. Let's talk about the NBA trade deadline here today, folks. The Rockets stand pat. The Rockets hold. There is no movement on the Rockets' part. And honestly, if you've been listening to the podcast, that's something that I've said that I'm okay with. Almost anticipating. If I wasn't sure if they were going to get another ball handler. I thought perhaps they were looking for a backup center, because when you look at the center depth on the Houston Rockets, it's Alperen Şengün, then it's Clint Capella, and then it's Jeff Green. Obviously, Clint Capella has played well for the Houston Rockets as of late. We love Capella on this podcast, but we were thinking maybe they would go for another big body, another screen setter, another offensive rebounder, somebody like Steven Adams, but maybe, not quite that caliber of a player. However, the Rockets did not go in one direction or another at the trade deadline. They mentioned, I shared this on Instagram stories at Space Cadet Sports. I shared that, there's been rumors that the Rocket, not rumors, there's been statements said by the Rockets organization that they want to grow the young core. They don't want to blow it all up. And that came after the Giannis news, that Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Greek freak, he was looking out of Milwaukee, perhaps. For those of you who've been paying attention, the Rockets got no Giannis. No other team did as well except for the Bucks. The Bucks keep Giannis. It's no Harden either. James Harden requested a trade from the LA Clippers, as that romance has been broken down. And Harden didn't come to Houston. I don't think there were. I mean, look, I think some people, some fans, maybe for the nostalgia, were hoping for a little James Harden, but I don't think any of us were really serious about James Harden fixing the problems that the Rockets have this season. I mean, it would have been a nice reunion for nostalgia's sake. But there's Carla, getting an Amazon delivery, I'm assuming. But here at the podcast, we weren't thinking James Harden was a serious fix for the Rockets as much as it would have been just a fun narrative. Also, no ball handler. I mentioned perhaps the Rockets were looking for a ball handler to help Amen Thompson, to help Reed Shepherd and Aaron Holiday out at the point guard position, seeing that Fred VanVleet is injured. So essentially here at the podcast, we thought they were either going to replace one of their biggest injured players, or one of the injured players that they need the most, either Steven Adams or Fred VanVleet. We thought perhaps there could be some movement to get some of the bench shored up in those spots. But they didn't go that way. So essentially what we're looking here for the Rockets is, there were rumors of maybe Kobe White from the Chicago Bulls to the Rockets. However, that really didn't come into fruition. The rumors, I think that was a serious trade that the Rockets were trying to implement there, or Rockets GM Raphael Stone. However, what I read was that the asking price was Tari Eason. The Chicago Bulls were looking for Tari Eason, and the Rockets, I think that was just too rich for their blood, too much of an ask. Kobe White is a great guard, a great offensive guard. He could have helped with some of the play creation or the playmaking of the Houston Rockets. However, he is on an expiring contract, and there was no guarantee that White would play for the Rockets subsequent seasons. So, yeah, we know that Tari Eason is not signed to an extension yet. This is his last season under contract with the Houston Rockets. However, there is anticipation that Eason wants to play for the Rockets. There is an anticipation of signing Eason back because Eason wants to play for the Rockets. The Rockets seemingly want Eason back. So I think that was just too big of an ask for the organization. Getting Kobe White in here, who might help with the playmaking and the point guard positioning, but you're losing a big rotational piece. Head coach Ime Udoka loves his long forwards that can play multiple positions and play defense on multiple positions, and that is the type of player Tari Eason is. He's a big energy player too. I think guys like Eason and Jayshawn Tate to a lesser extent, and I love me some Jayshawn Tate, this is no shade, but those energy players are the type of players that Ime Udoka loves and goes in there and challenges the Rockets for lack of a better word I can't think of right now, I apologize, earmuffs, children, players that give a shit. They go in there, they really help out the effort on the floor with their energy efforts. So I think that was just too big of an ask for the Rockets, and I agree. As much as I like Kobe White, or a player like Kobe White, he would fit in, I think, very well for the Rockets organization and offense. It would have been tough to see Eason go, and it probably wasn't just going to be one for one. There probably was going to be other things in that trade, I'm sure, because a lot of teams were interested in White. I think the Rockets were good not to bite down on that. I'm glad they didn't. I mean, I don't even know how the numbers would have worked for a James Harden trade, but they would have had to give up a lot of money and potentially a lot of players to the Clippers, because I don't think the Clippers would have taken Fred VanVleet and Steven Adams, taking on two injured players and some draft picks. I mean, I don't know, maybe they would have, but I just don't think that trade would have worked out financially for either one of the teams. And Giannis, I do get. I know there were a lot of Rockets fans out there that were excited about the potential of Giannis in a Houston Rockets jersey. And don't get me wrong, so am I. Look, if I could do a trade on 2K so I could get Giannis in a Rockets jersey, I'd totally do that. That'd be fun. However, in reality, I kind of think about it this way, right? What pieces would the team be left with if there was a Giannis trade, right? They would have had to package a lot of players in there, some picks. It would have really set the Rockets back, I believe, just personnel wise, for the next couple of seasons. However, the swing would have been so big that championship window could really seem open this season, because you got Giannis, you have KD. Who knows who else would be left after a trade like that? But with Giannis and KD on the same team, of course, that makes a lot of fans salivate and think about the potential of that team. However, my little pushback in that direction, why it wasn't exactly my favorite idea, is that they still would have had to figure out a way for this team to play together and mesh. And who knows what combination of, buyouts or G League players that the Rockets would have had to cobble together to get a roster going for this team after that kind of a trade. And, we can talk a little bit about Coach Ime Udoka, but, kind of involving KD, getting a superstar on the Rockets and trying to get him into the mix. It seems like it's been some growing pains this season. I've talked about the growing pains a lot this season of the Houston Rockets. Show me that smile, my friend. We've talked about growing pains a lot on this season of the podcast. I don't know what I'm saying. I just want to sing. But yeah, that being said, is like it would have been more growing pains to get a player like Giannis on this team, figure out a way for Giannis and KD to play together, and figure out where those rotational players exactly fit in. The championship window might have been opened a little bit, but Raphael Stone and Ime Udoka would have a huge job ahead of them to get this team together. So I'm grateful that this didn't happen. I do think in the long run this is better for the Houston Rockets. But I know a lot of fans don't agree with me, and the Rockets losing to the Celtics definitely highlighted that this team needs some work. They're still going through those growing pains. If that being said, we're going to take a quick break. On the other side of the break, we'll get back to some Rockets. We'll start talking about your Houston Astros. We'll be right back.
H-Town Rebel Space Cadet Sports.
And we're back. Welcome back to the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Salazar Jr. We are talking about your Houston Rockets. Carla the dog is right here with me. Okay, we think Carla is a little more calm now. We'll try again. But the Rockets lose one of the most demoralizing games for them this season. And there's been some tough ones. Look, I do not want to make a chart of the toughest games for Rockets fans this season. There has been some losses to some clubs that have not been setting the world on fire. There's been some tough effort games, and the Rockets losing to the Celtics, and the Celtics are losing. The Celtics are injured. Look, I follow ball. Don't get me wrong. I don't think I'm a casual fan, but the names that the Celtics were starting last night, or during the Celtics game, I should say, whenever you're listening to this podcast, they're not exactly household names, that the dudes can ball. Obviously, that guy Pritchard that came off the bench, I mean, that guy, look, he looks like Jesse Plemons from Friday Night Lights, but that dude could ball. No disrespect to those guys. They're not exactly household names, but they can ball, and they put a game together and absolutely wiped the floor with the Houston Rockets, so credit to where credit's due. But man, if I could be honest, miss these highlights, fam. Do not watch the highlights of that game if you want to be happy. Definitely reading up on it is tough too. Coach Ime Udoka was ejected from this game. Alperen Sengun was subsequently ejected later. Look, let's talk about it real quick. Sengun was ejected. He misstepped and misspoke. He called a referee, earmuffs again, children. He called a referee a bitch. And look, this type of language happens all the time on the basketball court. Look, I've been lucky enough to sit close enough to know. However, the reason why this is a much bigger deal than a normal thing is he called a female referee a bitch. And look, you can't do that. I don't know if you know this, but that's one of those things you just don't do. So he got hit with a quick technical and ejection, and warranted. Look, I think one of those things, a lot of fans are upset about this. This type of salty language is thrown around a lot. However, when you look at the context of it, it was in poor taste, and honestly, Sengun has got to be an adult. He apologized later, I think he knows he's in the wrong. I think emotions got the better of him. But truthfully, he's got to be a bigger adult. And in these situations when he's constantly complaining about fouls, it drives us all nuts. Even those of us who are goon heads, oh God, even those of us who love Sengun, we get tired of those antics. We hate seeing him complain. He needs to not get so emotional in those instances and remain composed. He lost composure in this moment. He did not think of the context of the situation, and I think I won't speak for him, but apologizing for it obviously means he regrets it on some level. And I think he just has got to grow up. He's got to remain composed. And if you're out there defending him, being like, oh, it's not that bad, you've got to grow up too, okay? It's 2026. My God, we have to at some point be like, you know what? That's a bad look. I'm not going to stand by that. So we don't stand by that here on the podcast. Obviously, the most frustrating thing about this is the team's like down 20. I don't know why he decided to just go off. He's got to remain composed. And I hope Sengun, who is still a young man, just figures this out. Obviously, it must be frustrating to play the sport, feeling like you're constantly getting fouled and wanting them to pay attention to that. But I mean, we're hoping for some more composure for Alperen Sengun moving forward. The Rockets in this game, outside of the scandalous nature of what was happening, with words on the court when we're talking about ball, it's not a lot to be proud of either, to be honest. The Rockets looked out of sorts on offense and defense, and it was not the game that we as fans needed to trust this team the rest of the season. The Rockets are saying they want to keep the young core together. They didn't go for a trade, and to put up that kind of a stinker where the team just could not be composed and could not play to the level that we know they can play. It was a tough watch. Maybe they can pull it together. I have faith in this team. Obviously, I was a proponent for this team not blowing it up. So I have faith in this team. But to sit here after that type of a game and say that I have all the faith in them, of course, is tough. I think the offense needs to find life. I'm talking to you, Coach Ime Udoka. I really think one of the frustrations for a lot of fans this season has been watching the team lose some of its shine on defense and really not find answers offensively and look really stagnant at times. I think they have time to figure out this offense and pull it together. I think the young ball handlers need to figure out a way to play create and play create consistently quick. I'm looking at you, Amin, and Reed. I think that they can do it. I believe that they can, but it will take some growth. It will take some coaching, some offensive coaching from Ime Udoka. I do love what Coach Ime Udoka has done for the Rockets. But with that being said, he has definitely been frustrating this season, as it seems that he has Reed Shepherd on a really tight leash. It seems like there are not a lot of offensive answers coming from the coaching. It seems like this offense, he's letting them figure it out a little too much, it seems like, from my perspective. And anybody can come onto a podcast and criticize a coach when they've never been a coach before. I've coached kindergartners. I know it's saying a lot, but really, I'm looking for head coach Ime Udoka, to find some offensive answers for this team. He is primarily known as a motivator coach. He is great at motivating the teams to play amazing defense. I don't think he's not a great motivator anymore. I just think bringing a future Hall of Famer like Kevin Durant on the team, I think he's trying to figure out his role as a motivator there and his role in establishing an offense here. But watching the team in an organization like Boston, like the Celtics, just mollywop the the Rockets was tough. So I'll put it out there for you. Let me know what you think here, if you agree with me about watching Udoka really closely in these next couple of months here. But these Rockets need to grow, and they need to grow fast, and all eyes are on him. So I'll throw it out there as a question. Do you think Ime Udoka is the coach of the Rockets' future, or are you thinking that they need to go in a more offensive direction here? I'm unsure. Honestly, I'm definitely being critical of the coach here, but I don't know if that is completely the right answer right now. He's done so much for us. I obviously believe that we should give him some more time to figure this team out. But how are you feeling about the head coach of the Rockets, folks? Let me know, fam. Next up, we're talking about the Houston Astros. Isaac Paredes is still an Astro, and he is under contract. A lot of Astros diehards have been wondering, what are we going to do with Christian Walker? And it didn't look like we can trade Christian Walker. So it was like, okay, well, maybe we're trading Isaac Paredes, even though a good amount of us love Isaac. He's one of the few patient hitters in the lineup right now, so we feel like we need him. But where exactly does he play? That's been the question all offseason, is we have all these infielders. Where is he going to play? And I'll just throw this out there. We're going to talk a lot of Astros in the next couple of weeks, hopefully. But Isaac Paredes, while he's under contract and while he should be in the lineup consistently, he is looking like he's going to be the Mauricio Dubon of this season. It looks like he is kind of a plug-and-play guy in the lineup, in the infield, and obviously we'd want to see a guy like Isaac Paredes get much more opportunity than Mauricio Dubon did last season, but that kind of looks to be kind of his role. He's not exactly a defensive starter for this team right now, Christian Walker is a Gold Glove first baseman, Carlos Correa at third, Jeremy Pena at shortstop, and at times Jose Altuve at second. It really seems like Isaac Paredes, unless he finds some range at second, he's kind of the odd man out in this group. Plus, if you take Altuve out, then he's DHing. Then you have Jordan playing left, and we all know that the fans don't like Jordan playing left. I wanted to see more of it, but obviously as he's dealing with all these injuries, we need to keep him safe, so the DH position is safer for him. But we'll see, folks. Let me know what you think of Isaac Paredes and where you think he's going to factor in. I'm seeing him more of a DH role, more of a spot defensive fill-in, kind of a boosted up Mauricio Dubon from last season. In other Astros news, real quick, Framber Valdez is in Detroit. He's got a new contract there. He signed for 3 years and $115 million to be a Detroit Tiger. He's there with AJ Hinch now, so we'll watch Fromber with great interest. On another note of Astros pitchers, Jose Urquidy is now in Pittsburgh. I know I'm probably a bigger Urquidy fan than most listeners, but I always keep an eye on him as well. And folks, we're about to get to spring training, and we'll have a roster projection and a lineup projection coming soon. We'll definitely do one before and maybe even after spring training to see if there's any difference. Maybe a little personnel difference might shake things up, but I really don't anticipate that many changes to the starting lineup as much as just figuring out the depth and flexibility of this roster. You know, we're projected, the Astros, I should say, not us fans. The Astros are projected to go into the season as wild card or playoff contenders, but not exactly like the division leading stalwarts that we've known during the golden era. But I don't think the golden era is essentially over, folks. We'll talk about that soon. Like, folks, for those of you who know, I am having well, not me personally, but me and my wife, we're having sorry, I forgot the Borat. My wife, me and my wife are going to have a baby soon, so there might be some time off from podcasting unexpectedly out of nowhere. If that happens, just assume good news, and I'll come back and let y'all know. But with that being said, we're taking a quick break. We'll be right back to talk a little bit more Astros and get to your Houston Texans before we wrap up.
H-Town Rebel Space Cadet Sports.
And we're back. Welcome back, folks. I'm your irreverent host, Paul Salazar Jr. And we took a quick break. I needed one there, but we really don't have that much Astros stuff to talk about. Really, just talking about wanting to get some more win-loss projections out. So get ready for that on one of the episodes. I did win-loss projections last season too. I was close, but eventually, look, I was off. We'll also talk. And I don't mind talking to you about how I was wrong. I'm a clown, remember? I was also wrong about Cam Smith making the roster. But you know what I wasn't so much as wrong about was the dangers of putting Cam Smith on the roster, as I projected he would probably struggle at some point in the season because of coming straight from college ball, essentially. Look, we still stand Cam. We hope he has an everyday job with the Houston Astros. Don't get me wrong. We love that kid. We love his projections. But, I was like, I don't think he's making it because I think it's a year too soon. I was wrong, but I wasn't so far off about him needing some time to get used to a full MLB schedule. Maybe this is a season he just has a breakthrough year. We will see, and we'll talk about that. And my receipts, we'll show the receipts. Look, last year I said the Astros would have 90 wins. Okay, I'll show you my receipts. We'll see how I do this upcoming season. But let's get to the Texans, as there's really not too much more to talk about for the Astros, at least in this episode. And there isn't too much to talk about the Texans, folks. I don't know if you know this, but there is a football game going on, or really, I should say there's a Bad Bunny concert going on this weekend, and we can't wait for the Superb Owl. I can't say the big game. I don't want the NFL to sue me. The trademark name. But, we all know I'm talking about the Superb Owl. And I think while that's going on, there still is a little bit of Texans names, a little bit of Texans news I wanted to let you know of. The Dolphins hired one of the Texans' assistant offensive line coach, Zach Yesner. The Texans fired their tight end coach. So there's a little bit of shuffling around there on the offensive side of the coaching for your Houston Texans. We obviously have called for a new quarterbacks coach. Just about everybody has. So we're watching with great interest to see what the Texans do this offseason for their coaching staff. One of the biggest stories for the Texans is C.J. Stroud cut his locks. That's right, he's got a new haircut. But besides that, C.J. Stroud says no to the Pro Bowl. He was invited to the Pro Bowl and wisely said no. He's going to focus on football this offseason, not playing in the Pro Bowl. So that was good to see for that. He knew that it would be a tough Pro Bowl for him and wisely sat out. For the Superb Owl, the big game this weekend, I I didn't do too good with pick'ems this season. I don't know. For those of you who followed along, it was a tough year for your boy. I was so down. I was more down than the stock market after seeing my results for the 2025 season. But, we're looking at the Patriots. We're looking at the Seattle Seahawks and trying to figure out who we anticipate winning here. And it's tough. Tom Brady isn't rooting for any team, so why should I? Why should I root for a team? I'm rooting for Bad Bunny. But I guess, look, if it really comes down to it, I'm picking the Seahawks to win just because I don't want to see the Patriots win. I don't know. That's a bit of a hater pick, but that's how it goes. I do think Seattle had a better all-around team this past season, but we'll see. I do think it'll be a little bit more of a close one than my hater ways anticipate. But let me know what you think. Let me know who you think is going to win the big game this weekend. And folks, that's going to do it for this transmission, Space Cadets. Thank you so much for listening to the Paulcast, if you will. Please like, rate, review, subscribe, share, pop it, kick it, skip it, smash all of those buttons for me. We're a small podcast and only go as far as our listenership takes us. We are supported by listeners like you. So please share us with a Houston fan or Australian in your life and give us a 5-star rating. Give us a like, hit all of those things do well for us, so hit buttons for us wherever you listen, and reach out on social media. Let me know who you think is going to win the big game. Let me know if you think what the Rockets are going to do coaching-wise or personnel-wise. You think they're going to buy out somebody like Lonzo Ball? Let me know on social media at Space Cadet Sports, or you can call in. That's right, like a radio show. You can call in, leave a voicemail on SpeakPipe. That's speakpipe.com/SpaceCadetSports to let me know how you feel. Or you can leave a comment on the Substack. That's right. The Substack is a place to be. That's spacecadetsports.substack.com. And you can subscribe to support. You could get the premium subscription there. We don't put much behind a paywall, hardly ever. That's just, and I keep it very affordable. That's just a way to help pay the bills around here. But check out Substack. That's definitely an ad-free place to listen and watch. And also, if you don't want to subscribe to support for whatever reason, you could also buy merch. That's right, merch is here on the website. Aircraft carrier hats, Don't Sleep on Houston shirts, Carla the Dog hats in H-Town Blue. Check that out on paulsalazarjr.net, because I'm nothing but net. And if you made it this far, you must like me on some kind of level. So please find me making weird jokes on social media, memes, arts, podcasts, so much more, or on my website. So that's social media is Paul Salazar Jr. at Paul Salazar Jr. I should say. The website, once again, paulsalazarjr.net, where you can find my other Substack, all my other writing, and all my other nonsense, if you're nasty. Thanks so much for listening. Remember to be the best that you can be. Keep your head up, kid. And as always, vamos Houston, and abolish ICE.